We are our children's best hope for their future, and every child deserves to reach their full potential so they can be their best selves in the classroom, on the playing field, and in the future. With the right resources and guidance, they can achieve remarkable things. And as parents, we want to fully support our children through their growing years. These are the ways we can help our children to grow well, by preventing growth faltering to avoid further complications, such as stunting. This can be done by nurturing with good nutrition through healthy feeding practices and eating habits. Not forgetting, physical activity and rest should be balanced so your child can stay healthy and happy growing up. Regular growth checkups are also important to make sure that your child is following their trajectory. Monitoring your child's growth can provide important information about their overall health and well-being, to know whether they are receiving enough nutrition to track their development and to detect growth abnormalities early on, so you can take appropriate action as early as possible to address the issue and prevent further health problems. It's never too early to give your child the healthiest start in life. This Growth Watch Month, bring your child to an IMFeD clinic for a growth checkup and screening, and take part in the Parents Forum to learn how to optimize your child's growth. Join us in celebrating Growth Watch Month to help your child soar to a brighter future. Visit imfed.my to learn more.
Hello and a very good afternoon to everyone who has joined us here on Zoom, Facebook Live, as well as YouTube Live. Welcome to the IMFeD for Growth program, Growth Watch Month Forum Series. My name is Jalisa Sanjana and I will be your host for this forum session. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure most of you are very curious and of course you're pumped up to join in this forum session in order for you to get a better understanding on the topics that we will be covering today. So before we kickstart our forum series, allow me to share with you a few of our housekeeping announcements. If at all you have any questions throughout the session, well, scan the QR code or join us on slido.com and enter the code, which is IMFeD, to participate on all of our interactive sessions, including our Q&A as well as polling. And of course, our technical team will also be dropping in this instruction in your Zoom chat box, and it will be easy for you to follow the instructions. So now, ladies and gentlemen, for your information, the IMFeD program was launched in 2012 by the Malaysian Paediatric Association, MPA, focusing on healthcare professionals and parents in optimizing children's growth. As you have already watched the video earlier, ladies and gentlemen, we would also like to share with you the good news that IMFeD has recently launched the Growth Watch Month to raise awareness on the importance of good growth for children and adolescents to prevent stunting. So we would now like to warmly welcome all of you parents, teachers, childcare operators to this forum. And this forum is, of course, the very first in the series, and we will be discussing on the theme of Tiny Tots to Towering Teens, parenting tips for feeding, nutrition, and growth. So together with me here today, of course, as much as we have all of our questions, and in order for us to get a better understanding and a clearer picture, I would have two of our experts from IMFeD who will be joining us. And this time around, we are lucky enough to have Dr. Chiang Hon Kit as well as Madam Siti Hawa Muhammad Taib, who will be joining us. So for those of you who do not know these two experts that we have here, allow me to also share with you a bit on their background. So we have Dr. Chiang, who is currently a consultant pediatrician and neonatologist at Hospital Lam Wah E in Penang. He has also received his medical degree from the University of Science Malaysia, USM, and his master's in pediatrics from University Malaya. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I can guarantee you are in safe hands. All right. As we would be listening to him, in the next couple of minutes. And of course, he will be here to answer all of your questions as well. And of course, we also have Madam Siti Hawa Muhammad Taib, who will be joining us. And she is a clinical dietitian working in the University Malaya Medical Center. She has over 28 years of working experience, and she specializes in medical nutrition therapy in pediatric, gastroenterology, and hepatology. All right, so a little bit more information we would be able to share with you as we have our forum session, as we would be taking in all of your questions as well. So be sure to drop in all of your questions. And once they start your presentations, of course, we will be more than happy to assist you if you would need a better understanding on the topics here today. So without further ado now, I would now like to welcome Dr. Chiang as well as Madam Siti on this platform. Hello there.
Hi, Jalisa. Thanks for the introduction.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Chiang, as well as Madam Siti, for joining us here today. Okay, so without further ado, Dr. Chiang, let's now begin this forum session. So I would like to start this forum session on this question, which I think a lot of us are quite curious about as well. So could you share with us on why is it so important for us to monitor our children's growth, specifically, especially when you talk about toddlers and preschooler, especially in that age group? So maybe on that note, you would like to start your presentation for us? Over to you, Dr. Chiang.
Yes, definitely. Thanks, Jalisa. Thank you again for everybody logging in and being here today. I'm truly delighted to have this opportunity to talk to you about a topic that is very close to my heart, that is childhood feeding, nutrition, and growth. And childhood feeding and nutrition play a very important role in affecting how a child will grow. And children actually grow in different shapes and sizes, partly determined by the genetics of their parents. And the children's growth is considered normal and acceptable as long as their weight and the height measurements fall within the normal standards for age, and the growth curve is normal. So when you say normal, that's even though the growth is plotted on the growth chart is below the average for the standards, for example, is somewhere here, this is acceptable. But when the growth curve is not increasing according to the normal trajectory, or worse still, if it's declining, like in this case, the child growth is faltering, and this is very worrying. And a child is considered too thin or too short if the weight and height falls in this red zone. This means that this child is within the community where there are less than 2% of the children of the age. And this is extremely poorly, the child weight and height is actually very poor and need a lot of investigation. And malnutrition actually affects all children all over the world, especially the lower income and the poorer countries. And the WHO and UNICEF statistics show that 47 million children under 5 are too thin for their age, and over 140 million children under 5 are stunted or too short for their age. Despite the fact that our country is supposed to be heading towards being a developed country status, but our Malaysian children are not growing well. Our latest data in last year, 2022, show that 1 in 5 children are actually too short for their age, and 1 in 10 children are actually too thin for their age. From the time we are born until we are 3 years old, a child is expected to double its height and 5 times its weight when we reach our 3-year birthday, and the brain growing very rapidly. During the first 5 years of age, by the end of 5 years, the brain will expect to reach 90% of the adult size. And all the neurocognitive skills such as vision, hearing, language, and higher cognitive function continue to develop. And this is a very critical period where the brain is developing very rapidly and highest amount of nutrient is needed. So malnutrition will cause very severe irreversible damage to the child's brain neurodevelopment. And there are a lot of lifelong effects of a child that is not growing well. Their immune system will be weakened, causing them to have increased chances of sickness and increased mortality. And also found that they are higher risk of developing diseases such as obesity, diabetes, hypertension, even cancer, leading to premature death. And it's found that this irreversible damage will cause them to be unable to achieve their full cognitive function. Stunting has shown that the children who are not growing well, the IQ is 11 points lower than the average child. And so this eventually will lead to lower economic productivity and earning capacity. And what is even more worrying is that a girl who is not growing well, who is stunted, then there's a chance that their unborn child later in life will be affected as well. So physical growth of children is partially affected by genetic potential, as I said earlier, but is significantly influenced by socio-economic factors, medical illness, and dietary intake. And dietary intake and eating behavior is influenced by parenting style, feeding practices, and food choices. And how do children and babies learn about food? Our taste experience begin very early stage of life, and through the experiencing the flavor through the amniotic fluid, and the breast milk will influence the flavor preference later in life. Breastfeeding babies are more willing to accept new foods during complementary feeding and eat a more variety of food than bottle-fed babies. And most babies, by the time they reach 12 years onwards, they can start to learn to accept textures, and the chewing skill will continue to develop until 4 years old. And most babies are able to eat, can feed themselves with a spoon at around 15 months. And babies are known to bond with this natural liking for sweet taste and a tendency to reject bitter taste. And therefore, it's very common for them to reject vegetables in the early stages of life. And some infants, infants and babies are also known to have more taste buds, 3 times more than adults. And therefore, they're more sensitive to taste, and they can detect changes and difference in taste of food. And some children may have even more taste buds. We call them super taster. So they are more picky and more difficult to accept new food. There is also a genetic influence on how a child's eating behavior. Therefore, some children are born naturally easy to feed, and some are more fussy when it comes to food choices. Willingness to try new foods, as well as better acceptance of consumption of food, can be developed through repeated exposure to a new food. And studies have shown that after multiple exposure of a new food that they don't like, about 7 to 8 times they can accept the food pretty well. And the willingness to accept new food also affected by how frequent we expose babies and young children to a variety of food. And by observing how others eat will increase the likelihood that the child will want to taste the same food, and they will be better accepting and consuming new food. Children tend to self-regulate how they eat, and they may vary their intake from day to day. So it's very normal that they can change their consumption up to 30%, but without any effect on their growth. Very important to note that delayed introduction of food after 1 year old has a higher risk of feeding difficulty, and the food that are not introduced before 4 years old, they are very likely won't like to taste that food. But it's not all about the child. There's an interaction between the person who feed the caregiver and the child will also affect the feeding process. And this brings us to talk briefly about parenting feeding. So caregiver generally feed children using a particular feeding style according to how demanding they are, and how responsive to the need of the child. So the most ideal style is a responsive or authoritative way of feeding, where high demand on child to eat well, but also supportive. So this is by encouraging eating with supportive and non-directive behavior, nurturing high in structure, and demanding but responsive to the child's need. The common feeding difficulty behavior include insufficient amount of food, inadequate variety of food, restricted intake of some food groups, and unwillingness to try new foods. So the features of children having this problem are such as taking a long time to finish a meal, refusing and food refusal despite multiple attempts more than 1 month, disruptive and very stressful meal time. Some of the parents here may probably understand what I mean here. Lack of appropriate independent feeding. They can't feed themselves even though they have reached the age where they're supposed to do so. And a lot of young children resort to nocturnal eating, especially drinking plenty of milk during the night to compensate for the lacking of nutrient during the day. And parents, a lot of time, resort to distraction to increase the intake of food. And as I said earlier, some of the children end up prolonged breastfeeding or bottle feeding as the main source of food. And the child has problem with advancing textures of the food. So there are a few main types of feeding difficulty pattern. The most common we see are the children who are claimed to be very low in appetite, but majority of them are due to misperception, where the child is actually eating pretty well in terms of amount and quantity and quality, but the parents will pressure them wanting to eat more. And another category of children they are less interested in food but enjoy playing, so they end up be classified as children with limited appetite. And of course, sickness will reduce the appetite of the child during the short period. Selective intake, children at the range of about 18 to 24 months, they have this phenomenon we call neophobia, where they fear of new food. So this is actually a normal stage of development of a child where they're unwilling to try new food. But the acceptance can be influenced by multiple exposure and modeling, seeing how parents and the family members taking the food. And this can improve with repetitive exposure. And as I said earlier, you need maybe up to 8 or 10 exposure before the child can accept the food. Some children are a bit selective. We consider them as mild selective if there are more than 15 types of food the child can take. If they are hyper selective, they are less than 15 types of food, then they have to be investigated and being seen by the doctors and other healthcare workers to see what is actually the problem. And fear of feeding, very commonly we see in children having, say, for example, throat infection or hand, foot and mouth disease. So that make them refusing to swallow because of the fear of the pain that they feel. So the eating behavior of a child is partly affected by some genetic influence, whether they are sensitive to taste and their preference and the personality, but very much affected by how the baby was being brought up by the breastfeeding, the complementary feeding, the parenting style, and how they are exposed to food. So in summary, malnutrition and growth failure is very common, very prevalent, and has serious short and long-term consequences. Inadequate dietary intake and poor feeding practices affect how a child will grow. With this, I end my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Over to you, Jalila.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Cheng. And I think you straight dived into the topic very well with a clear explanation to how the pattern of the child's eating also works and every little detail to it. So on this topic right now that we're looking at, I would also like to take it into the next step and to also have a better understanding of this in terms of the child's nutritional benefits that is needed, especially when it comes to feeding a child. So for this, I would now like to have Madam Siti Hawa for you to further elaborate on your topic for today. And of course, we would merge both this information and also take in more questions from our viewers. So over to you, Madam Siti.
Thank you, Jalisa. Okay, hello everyone. A very good afternoon. Assalamualaikum. And I hope everyone is eager to learn something. I would say it is not new. Probably everyone would have some idea on how to provide nutrition to our children. But within the time frame, basically, I have about 10 minutes or so. What I'm going to share with everyone here is basically the principle of how to provide more or less appropriate nutrition for young children, especially those toddlers and preschoolers. Number one, we have to ensure that the meals that we provide to them in a balanced manner. So we have to include all these varieties of food groups in their diet. And one of the easier tips to do would be to encourage a colorful plate to ensure a wide range of nutrients. So it not only applies to children, but basically for us as well. So the more colorful the foods that we choose, basically is more would contain phytonutrients and it has more nutrient dense to it. Okay, portion sizes. When we say portion sizes, we are not talking about, you can't eat too much of certain food, so you don't want to gain excessive weight and things like that. When it comes to children, basically we have to offer appropriate portion sizes for child's age and appetite. So the thing is, when they are small, their stomach size are also smaller, meaning that the amount of food that they are supposed to have will be far different from adults. So we do not expect, for example, a 2-year-old child to have like 1 bowl of rice and things like that. So probably they can only afford to have like 2 to 5 tablespoons of rice is definitely sufficient. So if they do, meaning that they refuse to eat after that particular amount, that probably they are getting enough, they would say that, oh, they are telling you I'm full and I do not want to eat. I think the child at this point would have their own innate sense of what they call it, hunger and fullness, that which is good. So no pressure to the child to eat. Okay, so this is very important for parents out there. Child's portion sizes are not the same as adult portion size. What about nutrient-dense food? Nutrient-dense food meaning that we have to prioritize nutrient-dense food over empty calorie snacks. When we say empty calorie snacks, that those snacks probably would be able to provide a lot of energies. It would probably has a lot of carbohydrates and fats, but not much of other nutrients, for example, proteins, vitamins, and minerals. So we are talking about sugars, sweets, we are talking about cakes, we are talking about donuts, all those it can be jellies. Those are what we call as empty. It's not empty calories. It's actually empty nutrient snacks. So it's like it's high in energy, but not much of any other nutrients. So choose fresh whole foods rather than processed and sugary option. So whenever possible, we go with the fresh and whole food rather than those who are already processed. And then when we say processed, there are chances that it has gone through all those additional, emulsifiers, you add in additional fats, you add in additional sugars, then at the end of the day, you will not get much of other nutrients in there. So in young children, one of the elements that we have to more or less take note would be calcium, because we need them to have like stronger bones, teeth, and basically we want them to grow taller. So food that contain calcium, for example, milk, yogurt, cheese is very important to them, and we have to make sure that there are also sources of iron, because we don't want our children to become anemic. So things that contain a lot of iron, for example, meats, beans were also a good source of iron, even though it falls under the category of non-heme iron, would be less poorly absorbed as compared to meat. But there are always means how to improve the absorption from beans, or even the same thing goes with the leafy greens. Okay, it has a good source of iron, but we need something like meat, or we need vitamin C in order to improve its absorption. And omega-3 fatty acids, is a good fats, which is very important for their brain development. So high fatty fish, things like mackerel, sardines, those who can afford salmons, is also one of the example of fatty fish, and chia seeds and nuts, for example, like walnuts and almonds, are all a good source of omega-3 fatty acid. And don't forget about hydration. Okay, we have those parents, most of the time they will complain that the child refused to drink water, because especially when it comes to water, plain water. So we have to make sure that they get enough hydration by drinking water throughout the day, and especially now when the heat can be quite unbearable. So, but we have to remember, water doesn't come in just plain water. Whenever they have soups, if they are meals, those are already additional water in, or when they consume fruits that high water content, for example, watermelon, there's also is a good source of hydration as well. So water doesn't mean has to be plain water, but please bear in mind, we have to limit all those sugary beverages like soda, fruit juices, and sports drinks. So what we noticed that if any one of the parents likes to drink this, especially when it comes to soda, it's a regular occurrence in the house. They observe that all the time. Most of the time, the children will learn from their parents by more or less, or opting for that kind of behavior as well. So this is the reason why we don't want to limit sugar-free drinks. This is one of the examples of those, food that has empty calories, meaning that it has calories but not much of other nutrients. What about fruit juices? Some parents would say that, oh, if I blend my own juice, would that be good? Yes, probably it's better option than those soda or any other, or cordial drinks, or it's just those drinks in the boxes. But then when it comes to juices, it should be limited in certain amounts, because we would like to encourage child to consume fruit on its own rather than juice. But of course, it's still much better than soda as an option. And, and basically offer water as the primary beverage choice. They would be better in the long term, so that we don't have parents that come back and say that, oh, whenever I, give them 2 liters big water bottle to school, and they only finish half, and that kind of thing, because all these definitely have to start since from young. Snacking is very important in young children, because due to their stomach size, they will not be able to eat a lot during their main meals. You see, they have like 3 main meals, but it's important for us to include healthy snacks in between. So healthy snacks can be, in the forms of fruits, some of the cut vegetables, vegetable sticks, yogurt, also, any other source of dairy as snacks, or whole grain crackers, buns, bread. So you're talking about Malaysian snacks. Having apam bali Islam, for example, is not bad, but what's in the apam bali, and if you have, for example, pau, you have steamed corn, you have steamed sweet potatoes. Those are good alternative for snacks, but not, those chips, or it can be potato chips, or, keripik pisang or whatnot. No? Those limit unhealthy snacks high in sugar, salt, or saturated fats. So when it comes to chips, or even keripik, most of the time is high in salt. And those fried things, when you're talking about those burgers, hot dogs, you're talking about nuggets, those are definitely high in saturated fats. It's not something that you want to do it on a regular occurrence. And how do we actually get them to eat better? So one of the ways of doing it is basically involve them in, not just in preparation of snacks, but it can be as part of that those meals that we have at home, get them to come in and get them to actually cut some vegetables, or, just cut some fruits and things like that. Okay, role modeling is very important in young children, because basically we want parents to more or less be a positive role model by practicing healthy eating habits. If we say that, the other ththings like, like drinking sugar-free drinks, having fast food regularly, that kind of thing. So you use that as one way of to give, but giving them as a treat and things like that. That's part of the role modeling that we, exhibit to our children. Okay, and demonstrate a willingness to try new foods and enjoy a variety of nutritious options. So if parents would say that, they don't like it, that kind of thing, but the food is good. So it's not something that probably you would like to say it right in front of the children, because children would be, the first person that, is a good reporter. So they will more or less say the same thing again to other people. So this is what we see all the time. And as a parents, we more or less, we have to try anything new that, just to get at least, and to say that, say good thing about, say good thing about those foods, so that, we get the child to be more interested. So involve your child in meal planning and preparation. So whenever we take them out there for grocery shopping, so probably we would like to ask them, do you would like to try any new vegetable today? Do you like to try this particular fruits and things like that? So this is one way of getting them interested in food and getting them interested in terms of especially healthy food choices. Okay, passion and variety. I think Dr. Chiang has mentioned, in at least two slides talking about repeated introduction of new foods, because basically when it comes to new food, you have to do it gradually and you have to do it many times. If the first time that you introduce that particular food, your child just put it at the side, So when you have, for example, when you have nasi goreng, sometimes, there is a new vegetable in there. Some of the children would say, they just pick everything out and put it on the side. Okay, so if it's just the first time, that's fine. Just let them do it. Don't, make that much noise and things like that because they are not used to it. So over time, then probably they might not be making that much noise, but probably they eat only one or two, and the rest, they still, again, they chuck it aside. So anything new, if they don't eat it, just put a small amount on their plate and things like that, along with the foods that they like. So over time, they at any time they start picking on the food, get a good feel about it, and the next step probably we just bring the food in and give it a smell. Oh, I don't like it, but you never know. The next time you introduce that particular food, the child might actually put it in the mouth and give it a taste. Oh, it tastes yucky. But, probably the next round you can introduce the food in a different forms and things like that instead of just having a blanch or, stir-fried that particular vegetable. So what you do is probably if you do it in a, you do it in a tempura style, chances that the child would start maybe enjoy the flavor. Okay, so offer a variety of foods to ensure a balanced and enjoyable diet, and encourage your child to explore different flavors, textures, and colors. I think, we talk about variety many times. This is one of the key elements that we need everyone to know. Okay, so we are talking about variety. Diversity is important. We are not talking about Malaysian. It has, when it comes to food, of course, there's a lot of diversity. But when we talk about nutrition, when it comes to diversity, we are talking about those food groups that is, in order for us to say that, your child is taking enough, other than the meal frequency, we also have to consider the type of foods that we introduce. So in a young child between the age of 6 to 23 months of age, they must, if they are breastfeeding, so they must consume 5 out of 8 defined food groups, which are, other than breastfeed, grains, root, tubers, and plantains, When it comes to roots, tubers, basically, we are talking about like sweet potato, we are talking about tapioca, we are talking about plantains is like those banana, so either in the form of those big banana, macam pisang tanduk is a plantain. So you're talking about breadfruits, those is also part of tubers. So grains can be rice, you're talking about pasta, you're talking about wheat, bread, and things like that. So this food group, it doesn't have to be rice per se, So some parents, they would come to me and say that my child doesn't eat well. Why? Because my child doesn't like rice. It doesn't have to be rice. It can be any other food in that particular food groups. Has the same more or less nutrient content. Okay, the next food group will be pulses. It can be beans, it can be things like chickpeas, it can be red beans, or it can be black-eyed beans, peas, lentils, there are all sorts of lentils or different colors of lentils that you can actually find in our market, and nuts, and seeds, sunflower seeds. Those we consider that as one group on its own. Okay, dairy products. do not forget, if say the child is not being breastfed, so dairy product is one of the must element that the child must consume at this particular age. You do not say that, oh, the moment I stop breastfeeding, my child refused to drink milk, so I do not provide any other milk, because you keep changing the brand and things like that. So it doesn't have to be more on its own, but it can be it can be yogurt, it can be cheese, it's also part and parcel of dairy products, exactly how much, I think we will discuss that, I think with some of the Q&A. And the other groups would be flesh foods, things like meat, fish, poultry, organ meat. So this is those that provide a good source of protein. So it is important that, they are being exposed to various type of flesh foods as well, so that they will get different nutrients. And one of the important nutrients other than protein would be iron, especially red meats and organs meats. Okay, eggs is a group on its own. So and vitamin A rich fruits and vegetables. So things like pumpkin, things like carrots, those sweet potatoes, or this is part of the tubers and vegetable. But those fruits that papaya, those beef, that anything that is red or dark orangey in color, it provides a good source of vitamin A. Okay. Other than that, we lump together as other fruits and vegetables. So you're talking about things, pears. You are talking about rambutan. You are talking about, now you have like cheese. You have like grapes, those falls, or other vegetables like cucumbers. You're talking about cabbage, those, even broccoli would be other fruits and vegetables. Sorry, broccoli comes under vitamin A rich fruits and vegetables. Okay, so I would like to sum up that by highlighting on this Malaysian Healthy Plate. I think is a good concept that everyone needs to know, basically for adults and for children as well. So it doesn't matter whether you're an adult, whether you're a children, if you more or less follow this particular concept with quarter or half principle ataupun suku separuh, and I think even if children, the only difference is just that the plate size is much smaller. So it's about 6 or 7 inches as compared to adult. It's supposed to be about 9 inches. So, if a quarter of it would be rice, you look at the amount of rice, you can't actually put much in there, because you have to remember this is meant for children. So if, say, the amount of protein is about like 1 matchbox size, or less than half of the chicken, half of the fish, is still good enough, because we have to remember the portion size that is appropriate for children. Okay, half would be the fruits and vegetables, and do not forget on the side, because of the elements of dairy products or milk. So this is something that they need to have. Until even I would say that milk is something that is necessary even throughout our life cycle. So meaning that even adults, when you becomes older, so you would need a different type of milk in order to get enough calcium. So balance is very important. Make sure a balanced diet has, all those sufficient elements of the food groups in it. And the moderation is important when it comes to not just those empty calories food, but again, with the overall amount that you have and the variety. So it's good to expose variety of fruits from young, so that they are used to the taste and flavors of foods. And because not all foods are sweet in nature. So this is something that we need to remember: balance, moderation, and variety. If that, thank you very much.
All right. So thank you very much, Madam Siti, for giving us a very, very clear understanding of exactly what goes onto your child's plate in terms of the nutrients, and also in terms of the content the portions out of it. So thank you very much, Madam Siti, for the clear explanation of that. So now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call this the very fun session that we are about to have. And once again, if you have just joined us over here on this platform, we hope to hear from you as well. So feel free to drop in all of your questions over on Slido, or you could scan the QR code as well. So now, without further ado, I would now like to welcome back Madam Siti as well as Dr. Cheng on this platform as we are about to kickstart the Q&A session. So over here, we have the very first question. All right, so the first question that we can see over here is, how do we encourage and tell our children about the importance of nutrient? And are there any activities to promote the nutritional benefits out of this? I like this question very much. So we can start off with this very first Q&A session here with this question. So let's hear it from our experts.
I don't think children at 3 able to understand concepts of protein and carbohydrate and vitamins. It's up to adults and the caregiver and the family members being a good model, eating together, showing them this is good for you, and you have to take it whether you like it or not, because mommy, daddy, grandma, grandpa, everyone is sharing the same food. So I don't think they can understand the concept, what is good nutrition, but they have to model what is good to do during feeding and during mealtime.
All right. I like the honesty out of that as well, Dr. Cheng. It is what it is. You have to ensure that they model it and, to take it as, like what you had mentioned in your slide as well, is the parenting style at the end of the day, right? All right, so now we are looking over at the second question that we have here in our Q&A session. So once again, if you have just joined us, we'll drop it over. We will try our level best to take as many questions as we can. So the second question here is, how much portion shall I feed my 3-year-old child?
I would assume that when it comes to portion, are we referring to what do you call this, rice portion? I would say for a 3-year-old child, we don't expect them to eat a lot. For example, if they have about when it comes to rice, 5 tablespoons of rice, it's just 1 spoonful of rice for lunch and dinner, or noodles or pasta, that I would say will still be good, but we have to make sure there are other things that you feed. You serve it together with that rice. So if you were to add in, for example, fried rice, or when you have fried noodles and things like that, so and you mix everything in together, but of course the amount will probably double up. But then, if you were to use that plate for a child principle, chances that you will have basically an idea. But again, we have to remember that what are the things, we do not just talking about that one particular meal. So we have to look at the whole day's food intake, as overall, because, probably they have eaten a little bit more during the previous meals, chances that they might not be wanting to eat as much this round. But then, but all in all, we don't expect them to eat a lot. And the most important thing is the variety. And the moment they say that they are full, then we should stop pressuring them to eat.
All right. Thank you, Mr. D. So it's safe for us to say that it's also depending on the type of food as well, yeah, when we refer to the portion of it. Okay, so now moving over to the next question that we have. And once again, feel free to drop in as many questions as you like, as we still have a couple more minutes. And of course, we would love to address all of your concerns, questions based on the presentations earlier. So over to the next next question that I have here. It is, how do I encourage children in daycare center to try new foods, especially vegetables, right? So when you're talking about vegetables, even though we are used to role modeling or peer pressure, but it has not worked. All right, so our experts, over to you.
Very challenging indeed, and not easy, and there's no quick fix for that. There are many things we have to look at. I mean, if it's truly the vegetables that they do not like, or certain types of vegetables, there are many different vegetables around, then we just have to keep on trying different form, different way of cooking. In a very extreme cases, sometimes we do food chaining. Food chaining meaning that you give a form of food the child can accept. Say, for example, a spinach soup. When you go for a Western style of a diet, a spinach soup, everything is blended. You don't see the vegetables at all, but it's green color. Most children can accept that. Then slowly with the soup, you add some bits and pieces of small vegetables, and then you gradually increasing having pieces of vegetables in the soup, so that they know that they are taking the vegetables. The other way, some people may not agree, is by disguising or hiding the vegetables. Say, for example, in spaghetti bolognese, where there are actually lots and tons of vegetables into it, but because the tomato sauce, you don't see the vegetables. But again, that may not be the right way, because the child doesn't learn to see the vegetable and accept it. So some psychologists actually recommend that you just put the vegetables on the plate and let the child know that this is part of your diet. I'm okay with you. This round, you won't take it. But let them know this is food and it's meant to be taken. I give you chance this round, you won't take it, fine. Then next round, we try again, second time, third time, 1 week, 2 week. Most of the time, they'll get used to it and knowing that it's food. And the day that willing to give it a try and put it into the mouth, then you are successful. Other ways that I have practiced is you giving other forms of cooking. I think Siti mentioned, for example, tempura, the chuchuk udang, you have vegetables inside, or even nowadays you can see a lot of dehydrated vegetables, very crunchy, as if they're eating crisp. So those are different ways that we can try to let them, convince them to accept.
All right.
Can I add in to that? Okay.
Yeah, sure, Miss Siti.
Okay, when it comes to vegetable, I think most parents, like including myself, probably we tend to lump everything as vegetable. Okay, we say eat your veggie, everything is veggie. So when they refuse one particular vegetable, the chances that they might refuse others, because we call everything as vegetable. What we as veggies. So basically what we do is you name your vegetable. If it is a broccoli, you call it as a broccoli. If it's a cauliflower, call it as a cauliflower. You're talking about celery stick, you call it as celery sticks. Or you call it carrots, or you call it sweet, what do you call it, pumpkin, that kind of thing. So that if they refuse one particular vegetable, we never know that they might like, a different vegetable, a different name. So you would tell them, oh, this is not broccoli. So what we have here is just a cauliflower, for example. It's like a different color, but it's totally different vegetable. So, and we never know that. I always ask the parents whenever we see them in the hospital would be, okay, what are the things that they like? Is there any vegetable that they like? So semua tak suka, they don't like all, but at least if you ask the child, sometimes they will tell you. Okay, so you might start with one or two, that's fine. You start with that, then slowly you try to add in the new ones and make sure, that's where the modeling comes in. And prepare the things that they like, but at the same time, there's always, you take other things to offer to them, so they get used to the smell, they get used to the sight, they get used to the taste.
Okay. So Miss Siti, I think that was a very good point as well, because I think this is basically a very common error most parents also do, because summarizing vegetables as it is, but not naming them accordingly to ensure that the child gets comfortable with different types of food on the plate as well. So a very good point there for us. And of course, we are still going to be taking in more questions here. So once again, to our viewers, if you would like to drop in your questions, well, feel free to do so. So now we are going to look over at the next question. And I think this is also a very common thing a lot of parents also face. As much as your child has a very healthy diet, or the portions that they're eating in terms of their meals, but this question here it says that my child eats and drinks a lot of milk, but he's still thin and small, so he's an energetic toddler. So what should I do? So to our experts.
When we say you're thin and small, those who attended my talk earlier, we have to make sure that the thin and small still fall within the normal range in the growth chart. and the child is actually growing according to the trajectory, that means the growth curve is normal for his age, then we are okay, we are fine. This child is just a small size. Then the next thing to look at is the drinking milk is a lot. What do you mean by a lot? For example, we'll be talking in a short while, a child less than 3 years old, 2 years old should not be consuming more than 3 times a day of milk. Then if you drink too much milk, you take away that fullness. So that when it comes to proper food, then the child won't be eating. And so we have to be careful that milk is good, but beyond 6 months, then other food should come in. Beyond 1 year, the adult kind of food should come in.
Okay, a very strong point, yeah? Solid food after 6 months, it's a must. So it goes without saying in terms of that, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Dr. Cheng. Okay, so now moving over in our Q&A session, we would be able to take in 2 more questions in Slido, so you feel free to drop it over. And I like this next question, in fact, because we spoke a lot about food in general in terms of our kids, but we have not really referred to this one category, which is for vegetarian children. So how do I provide nutritious food for vegetarian children? So this is the next question that we have. Over to our experts.
For vegetarians, family, and things like that, more or less the same principle applies. Okay, so if you have to ensure that the source of protein is no longer from the animal or the flesh foods, but you will get the proteins from the pulses. So make sure that things like tofu, you have tempeh, you have beans, or you have lentils in the forms of dal, or it can be, as part of the gravy itself, or it can be as, those vegetable, those patties. And another elements that we have to take note would be the iron. So when it comes to iron, those make sure offer them those green leafy vegetable just as a to provide the source of iron. Pulses also can provide a good source of iron, but like I said earlier, the iron from vegetable base or plant base is not absorbed as well, but make sure you have additional source of vitamin C. So it might be from fruits, so you have it together with fruits that is high in vitamin C. It can be oranges, or it can be tomatoes, or it can be papaya. So that will help in terms of absorption of iron. And the other thing is make sure that the child gets also source of proteins and calcium again from the milk. So I think the good thing with vegetarian children, chances that they drink milk very well. So milk is one of the must definitely in the diet. So you have to drink a little bit more as compared to those who consuming animal protein. But
Okay.
I think more is not like every 3 hours you drink more. So it's just the amount would be like extra 100 meals as compared to the other group.
Can I also add a bit about being a vegetarian child? The best source of protein is still animal protein. And especially red meat will give you the essential amino acids for growth of your bone and your muscle. And so unless just in case the parents have a misperception that vegetarian is good, they are good in many, many ways. But for a growing child, if the child is not gaining weight well and not gaining height well, then we have to seriously look at whether is that strictly wanting to continue to maintain vegetarian diet for the child. To ensure you have enough of a different kind of amino acids from the vegetarian diet, you really need to have a big variety to able to get all different amino acids, because they are restricted to according to types. Compared to one bite of a piece of meat, you have to have many, many bites of many, many different vegetables to get the same amount of amino acid.
Okay. All right. So at least we have a clear understanding for vegetarian kids as well. So thank you very much, Dr. Cheng, as well as Ms. Siti. Okay. So I think before we have this fun session onto the next half that we have here, which is the poll sessions that we are about to have, do you think we could take in another final question, Dr. Cheng, as well as Ms. Siti? one
Yeah,
final
sure.
question
Yeah,
here on our
sure.
Q&A session, because I think this is a very relevant question as well to our topic, because based on the presentation earlier from you, Dr. Cheng. So this is the question here that I can see, which says here that if a girl is given the same diet as a boy, is it possible for the girl to have the same height as the boy? So we're talking about the gender here as well.
I hope my answer is not going to create a gender bias kind of opinion, but we have to accept the fact that throughout human history, mankind, God unfortunately has created women of female gender to be slightly shorter than male. So if you take across all population, generally a grown-up female is 5 to 10 centimeters shorter than a male, whether you like it or not. But of course, there are factors that will make the girl slightly taller in situation. Example, if the girl is somehow inherited slightly better gene from one of the parents, or the girl happened to be getting the right kind of nutrition, the right kind of lifestyle to allow optimal bone growth and muscle growth, then there are situations that the girls sometimes they do get taller than the siblings. My personal experience, my sister is taller than me. So there are exceptions. These are exceptions. But generally, throughout the population all over the world, from history until now, women of female gender are slightly shorter than male by 5 to 10 centimeters as a whole.
Okay.
You can't change this fact.
Yes. I love how you're very safe with the answer as well. But of course, as what you had mentioned, it is what it is. And these are the facts that you can also see, right? Based on that. So thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Cheng, on that. So once again, I think we are about to wrap things up over here for our Q&A session. So based on this, once again, ladies and gentlemen, we hope we have given you a clear perspective based on our topic here today. And of course, both of our experts have given us a clear understanding. And I like the fact that we had a variety of questions in this Q&A session as well. So now to make this a lot more fun and interesting to all of our viewers, especially for those of you, who came in here on a Sunday afternoon thinking that you would like to learn more, but of course, we also would like to hear it from you as well. This time around, we would have a poll session, like we like to call it. And this poll session is going to be based on questions based on our topic here today. So to start off with the very first poll question that I have here, it's going to be very easy. We would like to hear it from you and for you to drop in your correct answers as well. All right. So the first poll question that I have here is, what are the appropriate foods that should be served to a 15-month-old toddler? Okay, so once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you think you know the correct answer, well, drop it in. And of course, I would also like both of our experts to give your point of view on this as well. All right, so we'll wait for all of the answers to come in. And I like the enthusiasm that I'm seeing from the audience as well. Okay, so if you're talking about a 15-month toddler, what do you think is the appropriate food that should be served? And I think we remembered Dr. Cheng as well as Miss Siti's presentation earlier. It was also quite important that after 6 months, solid food has to come in. So I think that's also a very good cue. So a lot of you have also answered, okay, based on A. So Miss Siti, would you like to elaborate a little bit on this?
Okay, so I see quite a number of people respond more to rice porridge if added chicken and vegetable, added salt. I would say there's nothing wrong with giving rice porridge with chicken and vegetable. Everything is in there. But at the age of 15 months old, we have to remember they are more than 1 year old. The principle for 1 year old is basically they can enjoy the same meal as other family members, because they are so don't worry about the salt and things like that, because sometimes some parents will complain, oh, my child doesn't want to eat, because the food that you wasted a lot of time preparing this, and they just simply flatly refuse. So what are the things that you give? Oh, they doesn't want the porridge anymore. Okay, so obviously at this age they would like the other things that you have, so be glad that they want to have your noodles or rice. Sometimes might not, if they don't, unless I give an exception that there are certain families that serve porridge as a daily basis as part of their meals. Okay, we do have that kind of people, so it is okay. But usually at the age of 15 months, they can have food with salt. So so that the food can be a little bit more tasty for them.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Siti. So now we're going to move forward.
In my practice, a lot of parents or caregivers always say they eat better or faster by serving porridge. No question, no doubt about it.
Porridge.
Yes, but then we have to allow the child to learn. So we have to parents will have to take note that definitely the child will prefer porridge and many of them so easy. But we have to allow the child to learn to accept more chewy food, more chunky food, so that they can progress to adult diet.
All right. Okay, so I think this is also very interesting because we are also hearing it from our experts. And of course, we're looking at the percentage of people responding to this poll as well. And of course, I like the fact that we also see 41% of them who have agreed that there is no added salt. But as Ms. Siti has mentioned, well, it's also important for you to put that aside and to ensure that they still have their meals accordingly with what the rest of the family members are having. All right, so now moving over to the next poll question that we have. So the next poll question that we have here is, how much milk do you think is appropriate for a 12 to 24-month-old toddler? Okay, is it 1 to 2 cups or bottles? Is it 2 to 3 cups or bottles? You have your A, B, C, and D. So we're going to give you a couple of seconds to fill this up. Once again, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. All right, so we can see that it's all obviously leaning over towards 2 to 3 cups or bottles. All right, so for this, so I think this one is quite clear on the understanding in terms of the quantity and how much a 12 to 24-month-old toddler should be having. All right, so very nice. So now we'll move over to the third question on our poll session here.
Can we make a comment?
Oh, yes, sure, of course.
Okay, so I think the points that we like to highlight is just that, after the age of 12 months or 1 year old, milk is no longer the priority, but it's very important component of nutrition. So make sure it's not in excess of more than 2 2 cups or 2 servings a day. So basically we will take it 2 to 3. It's quite all right because it's a transition period, but it's also a transition from bottles to cup feeding or in the other ways of like weaning off the use of bottles so that we can avoid the excessive intake of milk.
Okay.
Yeah, so the 16% people who answered 3 to 4 or 4 to 5, you have to take note, you have to cut down the amount of milk given to your children.
Okay, a very important note, yeah, in fact, on that, Dr. Chiang. All right, so thank you, Ms. Siti and Dr. Chiang on this. And now we will move over to the third question in our poll here today. All right, so the third question that we have here is, how do you encourage your children to eat better? Is it by watching cartoons on TV or your phone? So I'm actually very curious to know this as well, because I think this has become quite a norm among a lot of parents in terms of when when it's time for a meal, a lot of them have their gadgets in front, and it's a full prep that we usually see, right? So we would like to hear it from you, ladies and gentlemen. Which do you think is the correct answer? Is it never? Is it rarely, sometimes, every time, or frequently? And wow, we seem to have quite a number of strict parents here, which is never, which is safe for us to say that a lot of them here are on the right path, I guess.
Perhaps while waiting for more answers to come in, so I think we have to say, change the question a bit slightly. How often do you eat with your handphone or your gadgets? So I can guarantee you go to any restaurants, I can bet you every table there'll be somebody holding the phone. So the fact that the child learn how to eat with the phone is how the adults or how the caregiver eat with the phone. And so that is something we have to look into. So the category D and E, take note, the 8% of people who responded, take note, that is not the right thing to do at all. And when the child is immersed in watching something or distracted watching something or playing something, we call this passive eating. They have no idea what's inside the mouth, what is the taste, what's the texture. They just swallow, gulp and swallow. And so they do not learn to eat properly. So the 8% frequently and every time, please do take note. Congratulate to the 56%. Well done. Stay that way. 59%. Well done.
Yeah, and I like how Dr. Sheng, you have put us in the spot as well, because that is actually the truth. In fact, if you were to walk in any restaurant, it's a very common thing. Even if you're not holding your handphones, there's always a TV screen that we have our attention on while we're eating. Right? So a very good point also for us to take note on. And of course, thank you once again to our audience for dropping in your answers for this. So now moving over to the next question that we have. Okay, so when we talk about spoon feeding them, is it never, is it rarely, is it sometimes, or frequently, or every time? When it comes to spoon feeding, and I see quite a number of them have dropped in their correct answers with rarely or even sometimes. Okay, close enough.
So we're waiting the responses to come in. If you remember my lecture, children learn to eat on their own independently. Varies according to their ability. So some children can master the skill, hand-mouth coordination quite fast, some a bit slower. That is normal. But if we don't allow them to learn, then you'll never learn. I always like to give this example, like you never learn how to ride a bicycle, you never ride a bicycle. So same thing with food. You sure mess up your kitchen, mess up your dining table during the first few weeks, perhaps a few months, but the child will eventually learn. So for those who answer D and E, I hope they are still young. But if they are already past a certain age, say for example, 15 months, 20 months, then they should be allowed the opportunity to learn. Well done for the A. Yeah, never. Very good.
I'd just like to comment on that. I think we should start them early. So the moment they are able to, what they call it, finger food, usually maybe somewhere around 9 months or so. So they are able to hold baby skirts or they hold fruits and things like that, eat and try to eat on their own. So we have to actually encourage that as part of improving their oral motor skill. And the moment they are, and slowly it is going to get better. So if you start early, then it's much easier. And the moment they are about 1 year old, we should encourage self-feeding as much as possible. Of course, it's expected to be messy. And one of the reasons why usually parents do not want to do it, if we were to ask them, it would say that, they will not eat much and things like that. Things, it goes all over the place. This would be something that is expected. But we please bear in mind, we are talking about long-term goal. It's not short-term goal.
Okay. Very, very nicely said. I think it all comes together as a package, right? If the child has to mess it up a little bit at the start, it's completely fine. Eventually, they would learn, right? Okay, so now moving over to the next poll question that we have. I like this one a lot. It says, allow them to run around at the playground. Is it never, rarely, sometimes, frequently, or every time? Oh, wow. And we have a tie for this. Yeah? Oh, wow. We have sometimes and frequently. So we're looking at this spectrum where it's either I allow my child to just be themselves or no means no. I'm looking at that a spectrum out of this. Yeah. So to our experts, you'd like to comment on this?
Yeah, I pity either the grandmother or the mother having to run around chasing the child. Not necessarily playground, even within the home, they can run from the sitting room to the dining room to the bedroom and doing all kinds of things. Again, these are passive eating. The child is not engaged in the actual the eating dynamics of looking at the food, taking the food into the mouth, chew the food, taste the food, swallow the food, and ask for more. So they have to go through this process to how to learn to eat. So for those who answer sometimes, fine. But frequently, I think that 29% of the participants, you have to relook at how to change your habit of feeding practice in your family.
It must be a workout for them if they have to allow that, right?
Yeah.
All right, very nice. So again, please do take note of the notes from our experts as well in terms of this, as much as it's a very fun way to look at it, but it is quite a serious thing if this is happening frequently in your homes. All right, so now moving over to the next poll question that we have. This time we have prepare different additional foods for them. Is it never, rarely, sometimes, frequently, or every time? Okay. So I think most parents, as much as we try to use creativity at times, or, to make it more different in terms of the presentations, or even perhaps earlier, as Dr. Cheng has said, hiding it, making it in different outlooks of it, different textures. So this one, we would like to hear it from you. Is it going to be prepare different additional foods for them? Do you do it rarely, every time, sometimes, frequently, or never?
How many parents are stressed, trying to feed those so-called difficult child? Quite a number of them say that each time when they prepare something, the child refuses, so they end up having to prepare different things for them. We have to remember that being parents, we are not short order cook. Short order meaning that, whoever wants to eat anything, you tell me. No, there should be some more or less rules in the house. But I would say that it's best to, offer your child option from the very beginning before you prepare the food itself. So yes, maybe you do prepare some additional food, but make sure that that particular food is available at home. So you would like to see, would like to have cereal, or you would like to have, toast or something like that. So offer them, usually it's just limited option of like 2, so that, it's easier on them and it's easier on us. So usually if the child is given more or less some authority in so-called during the so-called meal option, chances that they will eat better.
Okay. I think to put it in a very firm way, Miss Siti, it's a home, not a restaurant. You eat what's on the table.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so now moving over once again, for those of you who have just joined us, we hope you participate in this very, very fun interactive session of our poll. And of course, we are also addressing the different types of scenarios that happens perhaps in your homes as well. So the next one that we have here is, where does your family usually have your meals? Is it at the dining table, in the living room, or anywhere they want to eat? Okay, so let us know. So what are your thoughts on this for this question, our experts?
Our eating habits start from home, and a young person, a child, will appreciate that a meal should be taken on the table from very young. So if they know that a meal should be taken from the table, then they know that it's abnormal to eat in front of the TV or running around or in the bedroom, whatever. So this starts from a habit from very young. So that's why we encourage that a meal should be taken on the dining table without distraction from TV, from gadgets, and just the food and you and your family members. Time to socialize, time to get bonding interactions and so on. Well done. Most of you, 92% eating on the dining table. Anywhere they want to eat, half the time, again, they model from parents and adults. If you come home, take the plate of rice, sitting in front of the TV, we are the one creating that habit and let the child know it's okay to eat in front of the TV, then we are at fault, not the child's fault.
Yeah. So I think it also promotes very healthy bonding sessions as well, right?
Yes.
It's the dining table is where everyone bonds. You put aside your work, you put aside everything, even for adults, in fact. So to make that a practice at home it also goes back to your values as a family, as a unit as well. Yeah. So there's no such thing as a breakfast in bed or any of that. Yeah. Okay. So now we are looking at the next poll question. And this one is, I think this is something where a lot of parents, even if let's say you have more than one kid, everyone has a different pattern out of this. So I'm very curious to know about this as well. How long does your child usually take to finish a meal? Is it 30 to 60 minutes? Is it 20 to 30 minutes? Or there's some that also go through the process of more than 60 minutes. Okay, so to our experts, you'd like to talk to us a little bit on this?
Siti?
Okay, I think those may be more than 60 minutes. This is the child who runs around at the playground. Chances that you take so longer for them to eat. So basically, we try to keep our meal times between 20 to 30 minutes, So in the moment, if they can't finish it, that's it, There's no more food. Because one of the things is just that most parents, it becomes very, very stressful when it comes to meal times because it takes too long for them, especially when you have to spoon feed them, that kind of thing. So usually we will have to put a stop at 20 to 30 minutes. The moment they are, they start playing with their food, things like that. So I think we should put our food down and say that, okay, you are done with your meal. So the next meal will comes at what time, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Precisely. And those children being fed, having to spend more than 30 minutes to finish a meal, the remaining 20-30 minutes extra, actually, you can hardly get any spoonful of food effectively into the mouth. So also we have to set a rule that the child understand that by 30 minutes, mommy will clear the table. Whether you finish or not, I will not scold you. I will not say anything. Time off, finish. So that let them aware that this is meal time and you are taking too long, it's your business. If you don't finish, no more. That's how the many children who are eating well in the childcare center, because they don't have so much time. So they know their teacher won't give them chance to prolong their meal. So they quickly finish everything. And then the friends will finish everything, 30 minutes gone, done. But when they go home, they become a monster because they know mommy or grandma or the maid allow them to do that, so they become a poor eating habit at home. So just be firm. Don't have to scold. Don't have to do anything nasty. Just say, oh, time's up, clear the table, and that's it.
Okay. A very firm, way of putting it sometimes really helps as well. But of course, giving them the freedom and the advantage, like you said, I think in the center or perhaps in school, it's different, but at home it would be different. And that's why I think they take a longer time because they take advantage of it at times. Yeah.
Dr. Chiang, would you like to comment to those less than 20 minutes?
Oh, true. So if they are rushing through the meal, it's also not too good. That means they are not spending enough time chewing, appreciating the food. And also, like I said earlier, meal time is bonding time. That means if the parents are just rushing through and quickly stuff everything in the mouth, that's it, done, I'm gone. I have to leave here alone. So bad for bonding, bad for appreciation of taste and texture of food, enjoying food, bad for not to chew the food properly. And so when you're eating too fast, it's also no good.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is, if they finish earlier, before the rest of the family members more or less finish their food, within that 20 to 30 minutes, that they shouldn't allow them to go, because sometimes they might just rush themselves because they want to watch something, they want to do something, that kind of thing. So let's also put some discipline on the dining table.
Okay, it's unhealthy, to rush through, and then they don't enjoy the process of eating or appreciating food on the table, right? Okay, so now we are looking over at the next poll question. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you have just joined us, do participate in It's Easy Breezy. Just click over onto the right question, right answer, as we are flashing the questions out for you. So the next one that we have is, how often do you and your family eat together? At least once a day, few times in a week, seldom, or even once a week, or only on special occasions. So our experts, once again, we would like to hear it from you for those who have answered at least once a day.
I think this question is more to have an idea how our lifestyle is like rather than what is right or wrong. We do understand that, current situation, both parents working and, caught in a traffic jam, many reasons that we cannot make it back home to eat together. We do understand that it's a lifestyle. We are in a time that, things are not as slow going as 20, 30 years ago. But we should make an attempt to eat together, as we said earlier, modeling, knowing that, how mommy and daddy eats, that's how the child should eat, and also time for bonding and so on. So for those, this is to give yourself an awareness that if you are doing too seldom, too infrequent, then we have to relook at our lifestyle. Which one is more important to you? Who is more important, and so on. So glad that almost 70% at least once a day. Excellent, and glad to see this.
Yeah.
But very sad if someone answer only on special occasions, only on Chinese New Year or Raya, or once a week is seldom, So we have to work harder. I mean, all of us are busy in one way or another,
Yeah.
but we cannot compromise our family, our children for that reason.
True. At every stage, I think that's also a very important thing for us to hold on to. All right, so now we are looking over at the final question in our poll session here today, which is, what are the average hours of sleep? So we spoke a lot about food and the consumption and how portions are and family time is, but what about sleep, including naps, for your child that gets per day? Is it 6 hours, 10 to 11? Okay, wow, okay, so we have a variety of this one. Over here, we have 10 to 11 hours, 6 hours, 8 to 9 as well. Okay, so to our experts, what do you have to say on this?
One of the issue I didn't mention in the lecture is how a child grow. We grow by lengthening of bone, and the bone lengthening is around the growth plate. There are areas of our long bone will start to put on more substance and allow the bone to grow longer. And this happens when the growth hormone, the hormone that controls the growth of bone, are running highest in the level during deep sleep. So during deep sleep cycle, the hormone release the maximum. And this happens a few hours after sleep and many times a night when the child is sleeping. So that allows the bone to grow, the body to grow. So it's very, very important for a young child who is growing, other than nutrition, other than eating habit and feeding, parenting style, one of the areas that we always neglect is sleep. And again, no matter what excuse we have with the current lifestyle and current routine that we have, we cannot compromise sleep for children to allow them to grow. So if they don't sleep well, they don't grow well. An average amount of hours recommended for a young growing child should be at least around 12 hours. So those of you who do not achieve that, I am so scared to see somebody actually answer less than 6 hours. This must be a busy high school student, have to finish his homework and pick up early morning. Less than 6 hours is really, really not enough, even for an adult, healthy adult. So for a young child that is growing, we are talking about 1 to 5 years old, recommended amount of sleep, including naps, should be at least around 12 hours. And that will allow the bone hormone to be acted on the long bone for the child to grow.
Okay, a very important note, because we can see quite a number of them less than 6 hours, 6 to 7 hours as well. So again, please do take note, especially to parents. Okay, you have to find a way to ensure that your naps and sleep, it's as important as the meals and time on your spent with your child, to ensure that the sleeping pattern is also right. Okay, so I think this has also wrapped up our poll session here today. And to all of our viewers, we would like to thank you for dropping in all of your correct answers as well. So now, ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to thank Dr. Chiang as well as Miss Siti for your time here today on this platform, for giving us such an insightful sessions each, and for answering all of our questions as well. So up to here, we hope all of you have enjoyed your time here on this platform. And I would also like to share a little bit with you with the upcoming forum that we are about to have, which is on the theme of high hopes, tall dreams in nurturing growth through the teenage years, which would also see other experts that will be joining us. All right. So in order for you to join us in the next session that we are about to have, be sure to scan your QR codes and to register yourself in order for you to get yourself a seat onto our Zoom platform. We would also be sharing this over on the Malaysian Paediatric Association Facebook page. So in case you would like to share it over with your family, with your friends, do invite all of them over. All right. So the whole idea of this is for us to bring together the focus on healthy growth for our children, especially in this Growth Watch month. All right. So lastly, once again, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to thank you for your time to take off your busy schedules on a Sunday, especially in joining us here on this webinar. So before we bid farewell, I would also appreciate for you to give us your feedback, okay? If at all, let's say you enjoyed the sessions here today, or perhaps you would like us to touch on different types of topics as well, we would hope for you to give us your point of view and also to share your feedback with us. We would be giving you all the options here on your screen for you to join in and to participate in our next session. So that's it today from me. I am Jaleesa Sanjana. Thank you once again for your time on this platform, and again to our experts for taking the time off your busy schedules and giving us such an amazing time here and a clearer picture of our topics. So thank you once again, and see you on to the next forum.